Spend Less, Craft More, and welcome to our next challenge in my series Scrapbook Spending Freeze 102. And today's challenge is to make a kit around a holiday, either a holiday album like this one or just a series of pages about a holiday, which is what I will be doing next. Any sort of bulk scrapbooking where you're doing the same theme over and over again. Number one, it's a great way to use up lots of product fast, which can be a really great motivator in a scrapbooking freeze. And the reverse is also true. Because you've got the similar sort of product out, you don't feel like you need to be reinventing the wheel for every page. So it does make the idea of attacking a whole, perhaps holiday or a whole stack of school photos like I did last year, it makes that idea just seem a little bit less confronting, a little bit easier. So I thought first I'd show you through two holiday albums that I've done in the past and then move on to what I'm going to do next. So this one here is from a holiday that we went to Queensland back in 2010. We did a road trip and you can see obviously my style has changed a lot since then, but the basic way that I put a holiday album together is still the same. I like to keep continuity through my album. So in this one here, what is the same is that I've got basically all my photos out in a row, and anywhere where there is no photos I've just got blocks of paper. And I think that my goal back then, I felt like I had quite a lot of paper. I hadn't kind of got into the idea of kits at that stage, but my goal was really to use up some of my scraps of paper. So every page has blocks of paper anywhere to fill up that gap. I've got the border punch strip down the bottom. I've used my stamps to stamp out the title in colours that match the page, and I've got my journaling on these cards. Oh dear, except sometimes they seem to be stuck to the photos, but my journaling, it's got the date and it's got a bit of ribbon there. So again, I was working through my ribbon stash out. This one here is a little bit more recent. It's from, oh, I haven't got the date. We went to Tasmania probably 3 years ago, I guess. And for this one, I have a mixture of pocketed pages, and then I just every now and again heroed a couple of photos. And so I had more traditional pages mixed in. So this time what I did is I made a kit with I've chose some colours from some clothes that we all wore quite a bit. That's one thing about your holidays, is you do tend to have a limited number of sets of clothing that you're photographed in over and over again, and that can be a really good way to choose the colours for your kit. So that's what I did. I chose papers that match those colours to make my kit. I had a neutral coloured background. That's what I forgot to say with the Queensland album, is that obviously they were all on white cardstock. Yeah, so for my embellishments for the kit, everything that I did was on my silhouette. So I had white kind of leafy fronds, I had these craft sequins, I had cameras of a few different sizes, and I had these little tickets. So that meant, because I used my silhouette, it meant that I knew I wasn't going to run out. It was easy to repeat and keep the theme the same through the album. Same with my titles. I just picked a font and a size, and all my titles are either cut into my journaling cards like this, and then backed in whatever colour, or sometimes there's another one, or sometimes they're black if they were on one of the traditional pages. Now I know, and again I did that on my silhouette because I knew I wasn't going to then be in the problem of running out of letters. So I know that not everybody has a silhouette, but I obviously do, and also I don't, because of that, I don't tend to buy a lot of alphabets. If you're in a situation of a big set of alphabets, obviously the way that you could keep the continuity is maybe pick a few alphabets of the same colour or of the same font, or there's ways that you can still keep the continuity, or just pick a few that make sure you kind of mix and match through the album, so it's not all a block of this font and then suddenly a block of the next font, so you can still kind of get that continuity. Yeah, and the same with the embellishments. You may not have a silhouette, but it might be that you have a larger stash of embellishments and might be able to pull a few packets perhaps from the same line or in a similar colour, It might be that you have some punches. Certainly you might have a big enough stash of your enamel dots or whatever that they'll work in well together. You might have some stamps that you can repeatedly stamp out some shapes and fussy cut them, or you could certainly, with the cameras for example, there's plenty of papers that have got cameras repeated on as a pattern, so you could certainly fussy cut cameras or some other suitable flowers or some other suitable icon from paper. So with this Tasmania album, again, it was a 3-week holiday, so it was certainly worthy of a whole album, and it was also worthy of some pre-planning. So I had page protectors of different formats, and I planned out where my photos were actually going to go and what sort of page protector before I printed them out. Now you'll notice I actually haven't done my journaling yet, which is a bit of a problem. I do need to get onto that before I forget. And I also found with these long skinny pockets that these are falling out all the time. So if someone knows a way to keep those in that's not going to be sort of too noticeable, I'd love if you could let me know. But anyway, yeah, that's where I'm at. I've got a photo missing, I'll have to check that out. That's where I'm at with that, and now I'll show you my next album I'm going to work on. So the kit that I'm going to work on now is about a trip down to Melbourne last year. Only 4 of us went. My oldest son stayed at home, and I don't know if I've made it easier or more difficult for myself. I've already made this page, which I'm planning to use as kind of the title page of that section of the album. So what I'm obviously going to want to do is choose some of the elements of this just to keep continuity through all the pages that are about Melbourne. Now, as you've noticed, I like to use a neutral cardstock, and I've used this brown here, but I've had a look and I've only got about 3 sheets of that one left. So I've pulled out some other browns. I don't have much craft. I could use white, but then this isn't really a white based paper, and so I've ended up thinking that the vanilla isn't too bad a match. So I'm probably going to use the vanilla as my neutral cardstock. Now, as I said before, the way that I choose the other colours for my kit is just looking at the clothes that we tend to wear repeatedly in the photo. So you can see my daughter's got that red dress there, which she's wearing again here. Angus has got this shirt, which is a similar tone. Maddie again has got this little jumpsuit. So definitely something along that reddish tone is what I'm going to be looking for. We've got quite a bit of denim amongst the photos. Here am I, and I've got this kind of creamy colour, which again will work well with the vanilla. So there's some of the colours that I'll be going for. And again, I picked up this green here from the tram. This is from, I don't know what else I've got from this, but this is from this Fiesta. And this paper at the back is from, here we go, DIY Shop. So when I pulled out this is what is left of my paper pads that I haven't pulled apart. So I've got 4 left. So I'm thinking that I'm going to try and use some of the DIY Shop in this kit. There might be a little bit of DIY Shop in this one. I don't know if you guys have seen these. This was 180 sheets of paper. That's insane. I think it was 3 of each sheet. They're very thin pieces of paper. So there might be some DIY Shop still in this one, or other papers that might work in. I'm never going to use 180 sheets, but even if I get a few more used, that would be a great thing. The other 2 pads that I still have, what I tend to do is I'll pull one out and put it in my stash, and then I've got the second sheet in here. Yeah, but I'm thinking there are a few, like Destination Adventure, there are a few travel themes in both these Chamel pads. So I'm thinking possibly I might be able to get even just 1 or 2 things out of those pads. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull a few more products, put them together, and show you what I've come up with. Okay guys, so I'm going to give you 7 tips for making a cohesive holiday album wholly out of your stash, and very shortly I'll start showing you what's in my new kit for my Melbourne album. So my tip number 1 is give yourself permission to make simpler pages. You're on holidays, often you take a lot of photos. They're often you've got time to take to try and pose nice photos. So let your photos be the star. It'll make the process quicker, and it's actually okay. I'm not suggesting you have to go as simple as this one back from 2010 where it had no embellishment at all really, other than the bits of ribbon and these little paper strips, but give yourself permission to go a bit easier on yourself than perhaps laboriously, you know, embellishing pages at a time. You've got, not only is a bit of repetition allowed, it's actually encouraged. It's going to make it feel like just the one album or the one holiday a lot more if you do that. Now tip number 2 is to pre-plan a little bit and get all your photos printed out. So for this one back here, I chose which photos I was going to enlarge, which photos were going to be portrait or landscape, which ones were going to be small or 4x6, and made sure that they were going to fit into my format. The other one that I showed you, I chose to do pocketed pages mixed in with traditional. So for that one, I chose which photos I was going to enlarge for the traditional and made sure that I had both sides of the various different pocketed pages. For this one, I'm using just normal traditional page protectors because I couldn't really do that front and back thing, but I have got them all ready to go. Some of them will be just a page. This is probably just going to be a page of 6 butterfly photos from the butterfly house, but then the other side wasn't going to be 6 landscape photos as well. So that's why I've chosen to do it that way. So pick your format, pre-print your photos. Tip number 3 is to start with a neutral cardstock, and for this album, as I've already said, I'm starting with the vanilla. Okay, so our next step is to choose our colour scheme, and as I said before, generally in a holiday you'll find that you're in the same clothes over and over again, so often that can be a really good way of choosing your photos. And as I've already said, I'm going with this kind of reddy colour, really all these colours in this paper here plus the green, but of course it might be the landscape in your case, depending on where your holiday is and what it's about. It might be that you choose your holidays from the landscape, but either way, choose some papers. So these top papers are the ones I got from those pads, although I'm actually second guessing myself about these more neutral ones. Probably that'll be too much neutral, but anyway, those are my colours. These ones came from my stash, and these ones are obviously from my 6-inch papers. Okay, so step 5 is going to be to choose or make embellishments that you can repeat across pages. Now, one really great way to do that is of course fussy cutting. Cameras, I think, can apply to pretty much any holiday album that there is, because it's all about the photos that we take. I probably have at least 3 other papers with repeating cameras, but this is the one I've chosen to use. So I've cut a few of those out already, and I might sit in front of the TV tonight or one night soon and cut some more of those out. I'm also probably going to use some of these word strips from this one. I'll never forget, focus on the happy. So there's lots on that are going to work. I thought about this floral, but in the end I don't think it works with this particular album. I also thought about these frames, and that's another type of paper that you might potentially have in your stash. Now, of course, if you've got punches or a die cutting machine, that's a great way to make a bulk lot of an embellishment. So I'm going to be using these gold glitter hearts and stars that I've already got cut out and already used on that first page. Something else you might have a lot of is flowers. So I've chosen these ones. I'm thinking that if I sort of cluster them and there's just a little bit peeking out, I think I'll be able to cope with that. So if you've got lots of flowers like I do and don't know how to use them, this might be a great way to get a lot of them used at once. Washi tape, of course, is something that you know is very unlikely to run out across a whole bunch of pages, so I've chosen a few of those. Stamps again, if you've got stamps that you might be able to stamp and then cut out, that's another way to get a whole lot of embellishments. Wood, veneer, I'm not going to use them for this album, mainly just because I've already got the vanilla, and you'll actually see I've got some craft as well, but certainly you can see people would certainly work in holiday album stars. I've got plenty of hearts. I've got plenty of, actually, oh, here it is. This one here, I don't know how many's in that. 45. So 45 flowers. So that could definitely, you know, I could use most of that pack in one holiday album if I chose to go that way. Okay, so next up is alphabet. So I suggest for your titles that you keep some consistency across your titling. For this title page, I used these super old basic grey stickers. Well, there's no way I would get maybe any more than 1 or 2 more titles out of that. So I'm fortunate to have a silhouette, as you know. So I'm going to be cutting my titles. I'll find a font that's similar to that, and I'll cut it out of this brown cardstock, which is the same as the one here. And these little tile stickers, I can pull those out as well, just for the odd little subtitle, because there is quite a lot of multiples of each letter on that. So if you do have a die cutting system or perhaps stamps, I suggest you pull those out and have a go at them. If not, chances are you've got a much bigger collection of alphabet stickers than I do. So just see what you've got a lot of perhaps, and maybe stick to the same colour or stick to the same font, or just looking for some similarity between your alphabets. And my final tip is to remember to leave space for your journaling. Yeah, your stories of your holiday are just as important as your photos. So what I've done is I've cut some tags of these 3 different sizes, again on my silhouette. If you don't have a silhouette, tags are certainly a shape that are quite easy to cut by hand, but you certainly might have a bunch of journaling cards that are, if not the same, you know, might come from perhaps the same collection and have a continuity across them, or you could certainly just cut some uniform sizes out of perhaps a lined pattern paper or a plain cardstock, things like that. With these smaller ones, I'm also thinking that it might be that they'll fit quite nicely in with my embellishments. And I'm thinking also that as I'm trying to use up eyelets, I'll probably use eyelets to set the holes and probably just add either the same colour twine or perhaps just 2 or 3 coloured twines across the whole album. So that's it. That's my kit. So your challenge now is to have a go at making a kit for your own holidays, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. See you later.